Good afternoon and welcome to Premier League Live for our doubleheader Sunday action here on LFS. Very good afternoon, welcome in to the channel. I don't know what happened with our opening titles there, very strange. We do apologise for that, some gremlins in the system. Clearly, whatever's happened there, everything went just nuts on the system. But we're grand, we're moving on, and we're ready to get underway today. Two sides with a lot still to play for in their season we watch at 2 o'clock. A Brighton side who still have an outside chance of Europe if they can finish 8th this season. They start the day in 10th. And a Newcastle side who are inside the top 5 but could go within 2 points of second place Arsenal after the Gunners' home defeat against Bournemouth last night. That is if Newcastle win today. Let's have a look at the fixtures from this weekend. I will tell you about the results that happened yesterday a little later on, but three 2 o'clock kickoffs today. Brentford take on a Manchester United side with 8 changes today. Manchester United, their third youngest starting 11 in Premier League history. Then Brighton against Newcastle is our game, and a London derby at the London Stadium as West Ham take on Tottenham, another Tottenham side with 8 changes, and also looking as Manchester United are to that Europa League semi-final second leg in midweek. Then later this afternoon we watch Chelsea take on the champions, Liverpool at Stamford Bridge. But first, let's get the team news from this one at the Amex, and starting with the home side in Brighton. Bart Verbruggen starts in goal. Mads Wiefer, Jean-Paul Van Hecke, Lewis Dunk, the captain, and Pervis Estupiñán are in defence. Carlos Baleba and Jack Hinshelwood are joined in midfield with Matt O'Reilly, with a front three of Yankuba Minta, Simon Adingra and Danny Welbeck, who scored against Newcastle in the FA Cup earlier this season. On the bench for the Seagulls, Steele, Lamptey, Julio, Webster, Veltman, Gruda, Gomez, Ayari and Howell. For Eddie Howe's Newcastle, they start with Nick Pope in goal, a back four of Kieran Trippier, Fabian Schär, Dan Burn and Tino Livramento. In midfield, Sandro Tonali, Bruno Guimaraes, the captain, and Joe Willock, with a front three of Jacob Murphy, Harvey Barnes and Alexander Isak. On the bench for the Magpies, Dubravka, Botman, Kraft, Longstaff, Miley Wilson, Gordon, Osula and Neve. It's Brighton in 8th against the Newcastle United side in 4th, but they could jump within 2 points of second with a win. Arsenal's runner-up spot is not confirmed just yet. Kick-off at the I forgot the name of the stadium. The Amex Stadium is next. A very good afternoon and welcome to Premier League Live. This afternoon from the Amex Stadium. This afternoon, I did remember it in the end. Brighton against Newcastle United, of course. We will also keep you up to date with the 2 other games kicking off at 2 o'clock today. Brentford against Manchester United and West Ham against Spurs. But the 2 visiting sides in that one, their focus is clearly on a Europa League semi-final second leg, which they both have a very good advantage going into on Thursday evening. So they will probably have eyes darted elsewhere, which means for those 2 London sides hosting United and Spurs today, we'll be hoping to pick up some big points. And it is 16th against 17th in West Ham and Spurs today, so not a real battle of any significance in that front this afternoon. But we will keep an eye on all of those scores right the way throughout the afternoon. It's good to see Eddie Howe back on the touchline after, of course, his bout with pneumonia. And it's good to see him back and on the sidelines, taking charge of this Newcastle United side that still have a very realistic hope of Champions League football. And not only that, but as I said, maybe, just maybe, a second spot is still up for grabs for one of those teams that really might want it. Of course, Arsenal falling to defeat against Bournemouth despite naming a very strong side yesterday. So it leaves the door open for those below them and those behind them, which that gap is continuing to close, with Arsenal not picking up as many points as they probably would have wanted in recent weeks, with the Champions League their priority. Second leg deficit that they need to come away from, try and win that to get into the Champions League final. That's nice work from Sandro Tonali here for Newcastle. Down the left-hand side, feeds it on to Harvey Barnes, gets past Van Hecke. Barnes' delivery is calmly into the hands of Bart Verbruggen. That was nice turn of pace from Sandro Tonali down that left-hand side. Really just burst past his man, then got the pass off down the line to Harvey Barnes, who beat John-Paul van Hecke in a one-on-one. And it was the cross that ultimately brought the attack to a pretty swift end. One thing for Newcastle, they don't have a good record at the Amex. They haven't won on any of their last 7 games in the Premier League at the Amex. 4 draws and 3 defeats in those last 7 visits. Here's Murphy, though, wanting to give Newcastle a very positive start. Back to Trippier. Inside now to Jacob Murphy again. And returns the ball back to Fabian Schär. Newcastle don't make many changes, just the one change, of course, today. Joe Linton replaced by Joe Willock in that midfield, and that's maybe why Newcastle are in the position they're in, and the form that they've been in as of recently. Newcastle is the consistency in their starting 11. They've given the ball away cheaply there, and a break down the right-hand side for Yankuba Minta here, up against Dan Burn, and Burn spots it, deals with it, and gets rid of the ball for a Brighton throw-in. That's really strong defending from the giant of Dan Burn. Yankuba Minta, a real tricky customer down that right-hand side, can be a real tester for defences. He almost caused the Newcastle defence an early threat there. Here's Van Hecke. Retrieve the possession for Brighton. Of course, I said Newcastle know what they've got to get from the remainder of their season. Brighton really, I mean, win and you've got a chance, but finishing 8th doesn't guarantee you anything, really. It's an outside chance of 8th being a European place. Now, the stipulations are still quite confusing as to what 8th place would be, because Chelsea and Tottenham and Man United and all that, there's a lot of confusion over who wins the big ones in terms of the European trophies, what that would do for spots and things, and it is quite confusing. And even if Arsenal win the Champions League, does that 6th Champions League, does the Premier League contain 5 Champions League spots based on league difference? I've no bloody idea. Honestly, the way they complicate this thing, just set it in a certain set of positions. But Brighton still have that chance if they finish 8th, as if any of those teams finish 8th in and around them, they can still claim European football. Now, Crystal Palace, they've got an even better chance than anyone else, obviously, in the FA Cup final. Win the FA Cup and you've got Europa League football next season for Crystal Palace. Craig Pawson, our referee this afternoon for this one, just giving a foul there to Carlos Baleba. Our VAR here at the Amex is Andy Madley. So hopefully we won't need to hear from him this afternoon too much. I've got to say, I haven't seen Brighton in a good few weeks, a good while actually, watching Brighton. As Trippier under pressure here from Adingra. Did well with it, facing towards his own goal. Throw-in given away. Here's Adingra again. Back to Estepinian. Now Hinchelwood whips with a cross, trying to go deep. Far too deep, and it's a struggle for Yankuba Minta to keep it in, but he does keep it in against Livramento. Minta spinning away and gets the ball somehow into the box, but a bit of a swayed effort, and it's comfortably gathered by Nick Pope. But that was good hold up from Yankuba Minta there. He needed a little bit of help, and he might have hurt himself in the process here. He's just gone down holding his right leg, which is a little bit of a worry. He held the ball up really well down that right hand side, right at the corner flag, and looked like he was going nowhere. Somehow got out of that, wriggled out of it, and tried to make something out of that move. As we'll see what happens with the Brighton bench here, whether Yankuba Minta will be able to carry on. Only 3.5 or 5.5 minutes played in this one so far. He's in a real bit of pain around that right leg. Looked like he was holding his right knee, but see how that progresses and how he gets checked up here at the moment. Still goalless elsewhere in those two other 2 o'clock kickoffs this afternoon. In the Old Firm, it finished Rangers 1, Celtic 1. And the Manchester Derby in the WSL, it finished 2-2 in that one. as well, and Real Madrid are currently beating Celta Vigo by 2-0 in La Liga. Arda Güler and Kylian Mbappe with the 2 goals. Of course, Real Madrid still chasing Barcelona for that title, and a 4-point gap will be recovered if Real Madrid win today. We see this again then. Might have been from an earlier tackle with Joe Willock that Yankuba Minta picked up that little issue. He is back on his feet after receiving a bit of treatment. He's on the sidelines, so I think he'll be back on in a moment or two. But down to 10 for the moment here at Brighton, and they're in trouble. Murphy across. Straight at Bart Verbruggen there. Again, nice work down the line from Newcastle. Good break down that right-hand side. And it was Murphy this time. Got beyond his man, got to the byline and tried to cut it back, but just squared it right across. And a simple gather for the goalkeeper, as Yankuba Minta does make his way back onto the field of play. Instantly targeted, but Byrne wins the header. Brought down by Van Hecke though for Brighton. Lovely little turn of pace there from Baleba. Hinchelwood finding Estupinian. Back to Jack Hinchelwood. Ball played out to the right side here for Weifert. Trying to squeeze it towards the box. Nicely recovered by Baleba. And Welbeck laying it off to Minta. Weifert again. It's nice work from Brighton. Good bit of possession. That's a lovely ball by Van Hecke, but well cleaned out there was Danny Welbeck by Dan Byrne, and he was offside anyway. The veteran centre forward, Danny Welbeck, it's a good segue. Of course, has scored in 2 of his last 5 appearances for Brighton, or 2 of his last 4 appearances for Brighton. But both those goals ended with games they lost. Of course, away at Crystal Palace and away at Brentford. He scored in both of those games, but they lost those games. The last time he scored and Brighton won was against Newcastle in the FA Cup earlier this season in round 5 when they won 2-1. That was that extra time winner at St James's Park. And, of course, former Sunderland player is Danny Welbeck. So it was a bit of sweetness on that front to score against them. And that was on a run of a good run of form for him in and around that time. For Danny Welbeck, scored 9 Premier League goals this season for Brighton, 4 assists, so a decent return for the 34-year-old, and he starts again up front, hoping to get the better of his former rivals when he was a Sunderland player. As Yankuba Minta pressing Dan Byrne here. And Livramento too hot to handle there, that ball. And it goes out for a Brighton throw on the right side. That's great pressing from Yankuba Minta, forcing Dan Byrne into the very hard to connect reverse ball with such pace. And Livramento, as I said, too hot to handle for him, too much pace. And Brighton retrieved the ball. Not for long though, as Dan Byrne intercepts. Here's Tonali. Trippier. I'm expecting a close battle between these two teams today. You know, I don't expect either side to run away with it. I expect a real competitive game. I expect a close affair. And, you know, Brighton have got the better out of Newcastle on their 2 previous meetings this season, winning on both occasions. However, both coming away from home. So, their first meeting here at the Amex this season. So, we'll see how that plays out. But if they can win all 3 games against Newcastle this season, not many sides can say they have done that this campaign. There is very little between these two sides. Of course, the reverse fixture in the Premier League earlier this season ended in a 1-0 victory for Brighton. The only goal coming in that one also from Danny Welbeck, so he does find the difference against Newcastle in the blue and white of the Seagulls. Brighton have won against Newcastle in their last their last meeting here at the Amex. It was a 3-1 win in September of 2023. Evan Ferguson with a hat-trick that day made it a pretty comfortable afternoon in the end for Brighton against Newcastle. That was very early in last season. That's 3 of their last 4 meetings against Newcastle have ended in a win. As here's Harvey Barnes. A little bit of a deflection there, was there? There was. It will be a corner to Newcastle, I believe. And let's see it again. It's again down the line. Lovely ball over the top. And there's a bit of confusion from the Brighton defenders. Van Hecke and Wiever just getting mixed up. And it just falls nicely for Harvey Barnes. Drifts into the box, unchallenged. And the shot, does it come off? Yeah, it does come off Verbruggen. I think he gets a left hand to it. And it goes wide for the corner. But again, it's down the wings where Newcastle are looking threatening at the moment. Corner was given by the referee, Craig Pawson. And now Newcastle will take this first corner of the game. Fizzed into the box. Burns head to it. But there's going to be a foul in there on Matt O'Reilly. And that's going to get Brighton a free kick. Here's Estupinian. Dunk back to Verbruggen. Goes long again. Trying to bypass the midfield. That's a nice work from O'Reilly to win the second ball. And a good turn there by Baleba. Out wide it goes here to Adingra. Simon Adingra drifting towards the box. Cuts it back. And the shot from Baleba. Well blocked at the edge of the box. Finding Estupinian again. Dunk to Van Hecke. It's been a very close battle when it comes to Europe this season, and even with those mid-table sides, you know, we talk about the Brightons, the Bournemouths, even Fulham, Brentford, for example, all had their spell of the season where they were up there and competing maybe for 6th, 7th, even 5th at times. As here's Willock breaking into the box, got on a loose ball, he still got it here at the byline. Cuts it back to Livramento. Doesn't want to shoot. Tonali doesn't want to shoot either. And Newcastle recycle the ball wide here on the right. Fed it in behind. Murphy looking for the cut back. Good hand by Verbruggen. Still not away though. Guimaraes. Tonali. Trippier feeds it in behind again for Murphy at the byline. Chips it across this time. But Verbruggen had it under control. That looked a little bit more nervy than it needed to from Brighton's point of view. Again, it's feeding the ball down the wings that Newcastle are finding those gaps and finding those spaces and finding the advantage really over Brighton. Just can't defend them. And again, it's time and time again, it's Murphy or Barnes either side, and they're tearing their fullbacks and defenders apart in that way. And Brighton are really struggling on that front and lucky to have not come away with a deficit to try and overturn here. Still level in this game. Now I want to hit a counter. Welbeck drifting off the front line, finding Adingra down the left-hand side. Double coverage for Adingra. Good bit of space though. He lays it off well for Wiever. Mads Wiever lays it off now for Baleba. Is there a shooting opportunity? There's not. And Baleba's dispossessed there by Willock that time. Here's Tonali. Finding Willock. Has to turn it back to Dan Burn. Well, you feel like both sides have that counter-attacking threat in them, but also at the same time you would feel that it's the wings where Newcastle are looking the more threatening, and probably the more threatening of the two teams at the moment in this one, as we have goals in the two other games to tell you about almost exactly the same time, and they've both come for those Europe glory chasing sides. It's Manchester United have taken the lead away at Brentford. It's Mason Mount. He scored a late equaliser against Brentford a few seasons ago, and that ended up being a draw. Or a late winner, well, they thought was a late winner. Ended up being a draw. Brentford equalised minutes later. So they're 1-0 up now. Man United away at Brentford, and Tottenham are 1-0 up away at West Ham. Wilson Audebert with the goal. So 1-0 to United and Spurs in their respective away games. It's meant to try to break away there for Brighton. Was brought down a little bit late. It's going to be a throw-in, is it? Has he given the free kick there, the referee? Well, a little bit of confusion, a little bit of frustration from Fabian Hertzler as to how that's not a card. It is a little bit late from Dan Burn, but did he get the ball? He didn't. Yeah, it's a little bit cynical from Byrne. It's late there. I think that should be a yellow card. It's dangerous. He goes flying in. And there's no red card. It's not a red card, but it should definitely be a foul. And the referee doesn't see it that way, and that really frustrated the Brighton bench and the Brighton crowd inside the Amex. There's a ball over the top here. Bounced awkwardly there for Willock. And kindly for Bart Verbruggen. Long ball over the top from Baleba, trying to find Minta, but too much pace on that one. Will be a throw to Newcastle. Brighton do have a decent home form this season. It's probably draws that have let them down at home this campaign. Seven of their previous 17 home games have all ended in a draw. 7 wins and 3 defeats. So not a bad return in terms of defeats at home for Brighton. There's only 4 sides in the Premier League that have a better record in terms of lack of defeats at home, which is Liverpool, Aston Villa, Arsenal and Chelsea are the only 4 sides in the Premier League that have lost less at home this season than Brighton, who have lost 3. That's the same amount that Man City have lost at home this season. So that's a fair point. Despite Newcastle losing more at home than Brighton, they actually have more wins, 11. Only 2 draws at home for Newcastle this season. So the draws have certainly let Brighton down in terms of their home form this season. But 3 defeats, so far at home is not an awful return for the season for Fabian Hurtzler. Who many forget it is his first season as the Brighton boss, and a job that if they finish in the top 8, if they finish in a really respectable position, and it's more than respectable for the season that those teams around them have had. Fulham's had a really good season, Bournemouth have had a really good season. For Brighton to be up there and competing and battling under a new manager and his very young managerialship, it is a very good achievement if they do end up finishing 8th. They're under pressure here down this left-hand side. Here's Harvey Barnes. Rolls it on from Livramento, who crosses. Well blocked by Van Hecke. Will just dribble its way out for a throw. Again, it's down that left flank that Newcastle finding the advantage. So there's overlapping runs as well from the fullbacks. Trippier and Livramento causing issues as well. It's adding that extra runner, adding that extra body that's it's not being keenly tracked by Brighton defensively. It's just giving Newcastle that little bit of an overload in those areas. It's nice work from Murphy down the line. Guimaraes coming wide to help out. Turns it back to Trippier. Back again to Fabian Schär. Byrne. Down the left-hand side to Barnes. Drifts inside this time, Barnes. Lays it off to Isak in a tight bit of space, and he tried to poke it through for Joe Willock, but not on the same page, those two. And it rolls back to Bart Verbruggen, who can retrieve. But not seen much of Alexander Isak so far in this game. Of course, no doubting his quality and no doubting his ability to find the space and find the back of the net. No doubt. 22 Premier League goals this season for Alexander Isak. One of the best in the Premier League. Only Mo Salah has more Premier League goals than Isak this season. So he is a real goal machine for Newcastle. And has scored in his last... he scored 3 of his last 6 games. All those goals actually came at home. So he hasn't scored away from home, Alexander Isak, since officially the League Cup final, but in terms of a Premier League game away from home, he hasn't scored since a 3-1 win over Southampton back in late January, where he scored 2 in that game against the Saints. So away from home, it's been a little bit of a dry spell for Alexander Isak, because he was on a run of form of scoring in, 4 and 5 at that point? In 4 of his 5 away games, so he was in a good run of form at some point in the season away from home, was Alexander Isak. Just gone a little bit dry on the road as of recently, but he can't score in every game. He certainly scored enough of them for Newcastle this season. Not seen very much of him today, and I would say that's probably down to the fact that Newcastle have targeted the wings a lot more than central areas. Same with Guimaraes and Tonali. The only time we're really seeing them is when they're helping out in the wider areas, when they're drifting wide, when they're helping the attack in a width position. As Livramento was fouled there and actually lost his boot in the process there by being fouled by Mads Wiefer. Josh says, need a big Brighton win today. Well, if Brighton do win today, as I said, they would go up to 54 points. They would be a point ahead of Bournemouth and 3 points ahead of Fulham, so they would be the odds-on favourite to finish 8th if they do come away with a result today. To Brighton, they would of course only be 6 points off 7th, so 7th would be nigh on impossible for them, with only 9 points left to play for after this one. So even if they do win, but yeah, 8th is probably the best that those groupings of teams can hope for. I think the top 7 in terms of positionally, the group of teams is selected, but the positions which they'll finish is still up for grabs in that front. But I don't think anybody outside the top 7 will really cause a threat in that way to the end of the season. Nice little turn from Yankuba Minta there. Lovely switch ball, finding Simon Adingra. Adingra again can't really break into the box, and Baleba's ball, as he slams the ground in frustration, was very wayward pass that from Carlos Baleba. Not usually you see that from him. Came after a lovely little combination between Yankuba Minta and Simon Adingra. And at the minute, Brighton are struggling to get in and around the Newcastle box. They are struggling to get in and around the area. So when they get into that final third, it's where Newcastle just lock up. And Brighton are just struggling to find that extra little bit of space to try and exploit at this moment in time. So that's going to be a foul on Livramento again, which hasn't enamoured the home fans. They felt there was a foul on one of their players a little earlier on that they were not happy wasn't given. I feel a little bit hard done by there. I mean, it's a little push by Yankuba Minta, but it's not major damage there, really. Josh says, I'm a Brighton supporter. Well, great. It's good to see supporters of every football club joining us in the afternoons and on Premier League Sundays. It's great to have you with us, and it's great to have everybody with us this afternoon. See this again. Yeah, it's hard to really say because Yankuba Minta's trying to battle for the ball, but it looks like Tino Livramento goes over as if he's been shot from the stands or something. It really looks like he's hurt himself, and I don't think it's down to Yankuba Minta that he's hurt himself. He's still in pain here. He's back to his feet, but he's holding that right leg, and strange from Livramento there. Well, Newcastle do have a free kick on the halfway line, very wide on the right hand side. It is of course Kieran Trippier that's over it. Brighton have set a very high defensive line here. Gone short with a free kick. Tonali. He will now lift it forward, but from one very short pass to one well over hit pass from Sandro Tonali, and that free kick comes to a very dismal end for Newcastle. Livramento still seems to be struggling with whatever he hurt in that challenge with Yankuba Minta. Have to keep an eye on him. Here's Baleba. Linking up with O'Reilly. Lovely little drag on the ball. And carries it forward for Welbeck, who just couldn't keep the possession there. And Dan Burn gets it back to Livramento, but puts it straight out of play there. The Newcastle left back. A bit of an unforced error. It was a lovely carry of the ball from Carlos Baleba. Nice little 1-2 with Matt O'Reilly, and then just kind of dragged the ball with him. It was beautiful the way he did it. Well, they've given it away cheaply here. Brighton in the midfield, and Willock breaking forward. He's got acres of space in front of him, and Joe Willock put it over the bar. That was such a chance for Joe Willock. Absolute bursts away. It was a weak ball, reverse ball in the midfield from Brighton, given away cheaply. Willock comes out of nowhere, bursts down the left-hand side, gets away from anybody in blue and white. As he gets into the box, absolutely, does he try and chip it with his right foot? And he just dinks it over the bar. And he puts no power behind it whatsoever. It's more of a positional finish. If he puts any sort of power, good power behind it, keeps it down, that's 1-0. And now Brighton have a little bit of momentum to carry. Lovely little reverse ball. Lovely little turn there from Baleba, but couldn't keep the ball. No foul, said the referee, as Tonali breaks away with the ball now. Guimaraes. Going to go round the corner, but Van Hecke gets there ahead of Isak, and Brighton back on the ball. Game's opened up a little bit more in the last minute or two. Here's Yankuba Minta. Steps inside this time. Cross to Baleba. Stupinian. Through the lines, linking up with Welbeck, and O'Reilly feeds a lovely ball towards Hinshelwood. Lays it off to Adingra, who goes for the cross, but it's too far away, and Livramento can clear it. Lovely reverse ball by Wiefer into Yankuba Minta, who gets the shot off and gets the goal. And Brighton break the deadlock. Yankuba Minta not tracked well enough in the box. He bursts into a little bit of space, and the gap opens up for the shooting opportunity. Lovely little finish into the far corner. I said the game was opening up, and this space absolutely opened up like the Red Sea for Yankuba Minta. And Brighton break the deadlock. Again, it's really smart play. They go a bit more centrally. They've been trying to go wide, Brighton. It's not really worked. They go centrally, break in through. The cross doesn't quite work out the first time from Adingra. It's well received by Mads Wiefer on the clearance. He reverses it back into Yankuba Minta, who just drops inside from that right-hand side beautifully. Really beautifully. Dribbles his way towards Livramento, chops inside, and again, and has the space to find the finish. Lovely little goal. And that's the tricky customer, and Yankuba Minta showing off his true quality. Brighton 1, Newcastle United 0, and Yankuba Minta, the man to open the scoring. And that's only what Brighton, well, you could probably argue it's only what they deserve, but it's one of those games that's as narrow as can be at the minute. And I said it's a fine margins type of game. And it's not only the home, they're not the only home team that have scored Brighton, because there's been more goals in those other games to tell you about. I can tell you Brentford have equalised against Man United. It's a Luke Shaw own goal, so it's 1-1 there. It's also 1-1 at the London Stadium. Jared Bowen has equalised for West Ham. It's almost like those two games are mirroring each other. United and Spurs went ahead at the exact same time, and at the exact same time Brentford and West Ham both found their equalisers. They're mirroring each other at the moment. But Brighton have the sole lead here at the Amex, and Yankuba Minta, the man to find it. I almost got caught out there, Kieran Trippier defensively. He's going to get the helpings of a free kick against Matt O'Reilly. And a free kick to Newcastle. It's Yankuba Minta's 6th Premier League goal of the season, by the way. His first Premier League goal since a double, a brace against Chelsea here back in mid-February. And his first goal in any competition since a 3-3 draw between Gambia and Kenya, where he scored for his home country Gambia in that 3-3 draw. That was his last goal in his career, which was obviously not too far along ago in March. But it's given Brighton the confidence. What a ball by Baleba! goodness, Nick Pope had come a long way and he had to get that one. That was great from Carlos Baleba. Spotted the free man in Yankuba Minta again and almost found him the space in behind as FIFA gives away a foul on Barnes. And he's going to get a yellow card, Mads FIFA, for throwing the ball away. That's just no real necessary need, that, from Mads FIFA. I mean, I get he's frustrated with giving away the foul, but I mean, you bundle the man over. I mean, it's quite obvious that you've thrown him over. And as he gets the ball, just tries to throw it away. I mean, it's a yellow card. Just no real need for it from Mads FIFA there. And he gets himself a yellow. Newcastle with a free kick and a chance to possibly respond here. Scher that's over it. It's a good 35 yards out. He will chip it forward, Fabian Scher, towards Byrne. Again, no real effort there. No real threat, really, from Newcastle. As Baleba slightly slices it a bit clear. Doesn't get it fully clear of danger on that occasion. Tonali. Cross to Trippier again. Tried to be closed down, but gets it to Guimaraes, who tries the ball down the right side. Well cut out by Pervis Estupinian on that one. Well, a chance for Newcastle to try and respond now. Going behind. Having themselves a tough task here at the Amex Stadium. They haven't won in before in the Premier League era. The last time they did win at the Amex was in the Championship, which is a long time ago for these two teams. It's when they won 2-1 back in February 2017 did Newcastle. Mohamed Diame and Yossi Perez were the two scorers on that one. Coming from 1-0 down against Glenn Murray, who scored the opener for Brighton in that game. And that was under Rafa Benitez. That was the last time Newcastle went away to Brighton and won. Chris Hughton was the Brighton manager back then. Funnily enough, that was the season that both sides were automatically promoted, of course, as the Championship's top two. Newcastle winning the title on 94 points, Brighton coming second on 93. Barnes battling and not getting the throw in there, Harvey Barnes, which he's not particularly happy with, but the home crowd are certainly cheering along to that decision. We've another goal, I believe, to tell you, at the G-Tech Community Stadium. Man United took the lead through a Mason Mount. Luke Shaw put into the back of his own net. It looks to be a whole swapping of the roles, and the tables have really turned here at the G-Tech because Brentford have taken the lead. Kevin Shada has put Brentford 2-1 up against United as Newcastle trying to get into the box here. And Van Hecke, goodness. Felt he was pushed there and Verbruggen had to punch it over the bar, but Van Hecke wasn't too happy. See this again. It's not great defending from Brighton, but it's a shot from the edge of the box there from Harvey Barnes, and then it's chipped into the box towards Isak, who gets his header to it. Van Hecke gets to it up in the air, and it's a bit awkward, and the keeper just has to kind of carry it over. Cross from the corner, delivered in, hooked away at the back post there by Brighton. Nicely retrieved by Fabian Scher, although not for very long, and the break is on down the left side. Too much on the pass, and Simon Adingra couldn't keep it for Brighton, or couldn't reach it rather, as Byrne now retrieves. 10 minutes to go with the first half. It's Brighton 1, Newcastle United 0. Yankuba Minta's goal the difference. But Newcastle battling back, trying to find that equalising goal. Livramento. Out wide it goes to Willock. Back to Tino Livramento. And across now to Fabian Scher. Down the right comes Murphy. Murphy speeding it in behind for Sandro Tonali's late run. And the cross from Trippier. Lifted into the box too high for any of his teammates. And a bicycle kick clearance there from Carlos Baleba. Gets it away from the Brighton box. But easily recovered by Dan Burn. It's Newcastle in dominant control at the moment. We'll have that deficit to try and overturn. It's been a fairly even first half in terms of the possession, in terms of the shots. It's actually Newcastle have had more shots than Brighton in this first half, minimally 3 to Brighton's 2. The possession again 53 to 47. There's very little in it in that front, so a very, very even first half, but Brighton have the narrow advantage at the moment. Barnes lays it off to Isak, who gives it away, and the shot from Guimaraes was straight down the throat of Bart Verbruggen. It was a nice combination. It was lovely from Harvey Barnes, chopped inside, laid it off to Isak, who held it up and found it to the late midfield runner and Bruno Guimaraes, who had the shot from the edge of the D, but right down the throat of the Brighton goalkeeper, Bart Verbruggen, who was under very little pressure there. 8 minutes to go with the first half. Verbruggen sends long. Sun come out here in the south coast. A little bit of sunshine. The sun is shining on Brighton at the moment, literally and figuratively. Here's Harvey Barnes trying to dribble his way through the defence, but good challenge there by Wiefer. And now he's trying to unleash Yankuba Minta, but Dan Burn again has that one covered. Yeah, it seems like Brighton are just leaving an extra man up, and when they get the ball back, they're just trying to unleash him. It was a dinger a couple of minutes ago. It's Yankuba Minta down the opposite side. They're just trying to get a one-on-one battle in behind, and at the minute, Newcastle's defenders, they're winning those 50-50s, and it's just zapping the Brighton attack. Again, a long ball over the top again. This time, no one in blue and white anywhere near the attacking area. And Dan Burn has a simple retrieve over the ball. Tonali, nice little turn. Again, the through ball was a little bit loose, and the referee sees an issue with that because feeling that Sandro Tonali was pulled back there as he played that ball. I wouldn't disagree with that decision at all. Looked like it was a foul. Guimaraes. Going to come a little bit deeper now. Across to Dan Burn. Linking up with Livramento. Back to Burn. Heavy touch. Carries him wide and actually might help out the attack here with Willock. Well closed off by Carlos Baleba, tracking down that right hand side to cover over. Trippier there, trying to get past the Dingra. Another throw into Newcastle. Winning a lot of these throw-ins are the visitors, but at the same time, despite Newcastle's threat down the wings, there's just not been ample opportunity to test the Brighton goalkeeper enough in this first half. There's no real moment where I go, oh, they've really tested Verbruggen there, or they forced him into a really good save. It's that lack of end product at the minute from Newcastle. Everything's working well right up until the final third. Right up until that last pass, that last moment of the attack. Here's Murphy. Steps inside, finding Guimaraes. That's nice work. Murphy chops it back across again. Right at the Brighton defender and dunk. But the cutback nice here. Here's Guimaraes trying to dribble through. And collides with a Brighton defender. And it's actually a Dingra that's dropped back in defence. And it was a Dingra that was fouled by Bruno Guimaraes. And a free kick to Brighton. Yeah, it was good work. Again, it was Guimaraes that made the difference. He spotted the run of Murphy. Murphy got across, but again, the cutback was just too flat. It's too easy. And then they tried to recover it, tried to keep the pressure on, sustain the attack. Newcastle, and as Guimaraes tried to dribble past the Dingra, just run in and took him out. And it was a definite foul and a free kick to the home side. Really brought that attack to the end. Newcastle have work to do Andy Howe writing notes in that little notepad. Spotted something. Spotting things that he can change and tweak for this Newcastle side to try and find some sort of attacking advantage. Very little room in that congested midfield for Brighton to try and progress. That's a lovely touch in there by Hinshelwood. Nice little combinations in and around the central third there for Brighton. It's Van Hecke finding the little bit of space to find well back, but well closed out was the Brighton centre forward. Now Newcastle want to break down the left hand side here with Willock. Lays it off the overlapping Livramento. Sliding challenge there from Baleba, but he made little to no contact with Tino Livramento, who wanted a foul. But I mean, I think if you're going to get a foul for that, then the game really has gone, because that is never a challenge, never a foul. I mean, Livramento tripped over Carlos Baleba. It's never a foul. It's good defending by Baleba, and it just put Livramento off, and he tried to sneakily win a free kick, which Craig Paulson, the referee, was having absolutely none of. Goal kick to Brighton. Short of 3 minutes to go with the first half. Brighton with that narrow advantage. Yankuba Minteh in the middle of the half, finding the goal. Lovely little bit of individual skill in and around the box, and the finish was really nice into the far corner. There's one thing, Newcastle really haven't had that. You know, if we compare the two sides, that is the difference, quite literally. You know, we talk, obviously it's the only goal, and obviously, but in terms of every part of this game, Newcastle just haven't had that space or time to find those shots off in and around the Brighton box. And yes, they've got into good areas in the wide areas, but they're putting cutbacks in, which are just easily being seen out by Brighton or picked up by their goalkeeper. Early in the game, they were actually getting more of a threat from those sorts of situations, as there's going to be a free kick here. Danny Welbeck given that foul by Fabian Schär as they try to go quickly there, but that one quickly pulled back by Craig Pawson. I gotta say, Craig Pawson has got a very simple way of dealing with things. He's got a good character about him, the referee. He just goes, just leave me alone. He's got that kind of, just give my head a rest, will you, kind of vibe about him, does Craig Pawson. Which sometimes you probably need as a referee. Just leave me alone, piss off. Get a grip. Lovely little dribbling from Adingra. Grip back heel, finding Estupinian in space. Goes for the cross, but too deep and far too close to Nick Pope in the Newcastle goal. Pope finding Trippier. Guimaraes. Last minute of the first half. Burn to Livramento, back to Tonali, and across now to Fabian Schär. It's just that lack of energy in Newcastle at the minute. They're looking a little bit lost with their play. It's a little bit laboured in their passing, and Brighton have just come into this game. They've settled a lot better, and Newcastle have looked a little bit wavery. Goodness me. Sandro Tonali almost giving himself a real horrible situation to deal with there. And charging in was Minteh, and he almost nicked the ball away from him. And Tonali would have been the last man for Newcastle. Would have been a world of trouble there if that had been stolen away from him. 2 minutes of the first half to go, as 2 added minutes put on at the end of the first 45 here. Brighton are having the better of it. Newcastle need to hope they're only 1-0 down before half time. Brighton are looking confident to end this half as Matt O'Reilly is bundled over. Or sorry, Jack Hinshelwood, was bundled over there by Bruno Guimaraes. And a free kick to Brighton in the middle of the field. At half-time, we'll analyse this first half. We'll look ahead, look back to yesterday's results and fixtures and what they mean for the table. We'll also look at the half-time scores from around the grounds and look ahead to Liverpool's trip to Chelsea a little later on this afternoon. So do stay with us for that at half-time. Van Hecke. Dunk back to Jean-Paul Van Hecke. Nice little darted ball into the path of O'Reilly here. Down the right side comes Minter. In a real great vein of pace there. Finding Baleba. Switches it across to Adingra on the left-hand side. Simon Adingra. Got men for company there. It finds a Stupinian. Back to Baleba. Newcastle shielding their box in the final seconds of this first half. Nice switch ball, and it's Stupinian, first time cross. Well blocked and cleared away, and now Guimaraes wants to maybe hit a counter. Was absolutely cleaned out there by Baleba. But no foul, says the referee. We play on. I mean, I'm not too sure about that one. That looked like a real cynical challenge, but that ends the half. And that is a controversial decision, because that probably should have been a free kick and a yellow card. But the referee saw no issue with it. And that is where we end the half. And a first half where Brighton have had the narrow advantage. There's been very little between the sides in terms of many of the stats. But the biggest and most important stat is one that Brighton leads at the break. It's Brighton 1, Newcastle United 0. We'll analyse the first half and many more when we come back. Welcome back to Premier League Live. Half-time at the Amex Stadium. It's Brighton 1, Newcastle United 0 at the break. Jan Minter's goal. The difference between the two sides at this moment in time. And that is a goal that would take Brighton back up to 8th. It would keep Newcastle in 4th, but possibly at the mercy of Forest and Chelsea below them. Remember, if Newcastle win today, they can jump up within 2 points of second. But it's a very dangerous afternoon, because if they lose and both Chelsea and Nottingham Forest win, Newcastle could find themselves outside of the top 5 by the end of play this weekend. That is the fine margins of the top 5 race and how tight it is at this moment in time. You could either be in the highest heights of leading the charge, or you could find yourself outside of the top 5. if the result doesn't go your way. That's the way it stands at the moment. Let's have a look at the weekend's results, and we'll then come round to gathering the half-time scores from our three 2 o'clockers today. You can see them on the screen, of course, in a moment. But also we will come round to that as well a little later on, and then we'll circle back and give you a bit of analysis on that first half before we look ahead to the game later this evening. So this is what's already happened this weekend. It was on Friday night that we started Matchday 35. Of course, if you joined us when Man City won by a 1-0 against Wolves on Friday night, Kevin De Bruyne's goal in the first half was the difference between the two sides. It was only one goal the difference between Aston Villa and Fulham yesterday at Villa Park. It was an early goal in that one from Yuri Tielemans that sealed the deal for Aston Villa in that one, and Fulham looking for a late charge towards European places, but their 7th away defeat of the season and Villa's 10th home win of the season sealed a good position for Villa, and might just get them back in the chase for the top 5 if results go their way this weekend, which is still very realistic. If both Chelsea and Forest lose, Villa could be heading into next weekend, possibly in a chase to get back into the top 5. That is the way it stands there. It was a 2-2 draw at Goodison Park in one of the final games of the era at Goodison yesterday. Everton were 2-0 up in that game. Beto and Dwight McNeil got the 2 goals in the first 35 minutes for Everton. Julio Enciso, the former Brighton player, of course, got one back for Ipswich before it was 2-2 when George Hurst found the back of the net 10 minutes from time to tie things up for already relegated Ipswich Town at, of course, Goodison Park. Their 22nd point of the season, their 10th draw of the season for Ipswich, and their 9th result away from home this season, which they haven't lost. 3 wins, 6 draws and 9 defeats away from home for Ipswich this season. For Everton, their home form has been better of late, but that's only 4 home wins this season for Everton, heading into their final ever game at Goodison Park, which comes in 2 weeks' time. That was their 9th home draw of the season for Everton, and from a very handy 2-0 scoreline, would have been a disappointing result. For Leicester, they keep Southampton's unwanted hopes of being record equalers alive, beating them by 2-0 and ending their torrid home run for Leicester, failing to score and failing to win any of their last 9 home league games before yesterday, but they came away with the points, and even Southampton couldn't deny Leicester yesterday. Jimmy Vardy and Jordan Ayew, with 2 first half finishes, sealed the deal and got Leicester 3 points, but of course already relegated are both of those 2 sides. It was Leicester's 5th win of the season and Southampton's 28th defeat of the campaign. It means the Saints are still rock bottom with 11 points, meaning they are just now 3 games away from being record equalers for the lowest ever points finish in Premier League history. 11 points is the record, which Derby set back in 2008, which means Southampton are just 3 games away from that being the case for them. But the big result yesterday, forget about all those other ones, the big one came at the Emirates. Declan Rice opened the scoring for Arsenal, but that was to be that for them yesterday. Bournemouth with a second half comeback. Dean Howson with the equaliser from a lovely header from a corner, and Evan Nielsen to find the winner after his red card last week was rescinded during the week after he was sent off last weekend. In that one, he had his red card rescinded, and it's quite ironic that he's the one to get the winner for Bournemouth. They won by 2-1 away at the Emirates, and they are only the second side to win away at the Emirates this season. West Ham and Bournemouth, the only 2 sides to come away from the Emirates in the Premier League with victories. But a very strong Arsenal side, despite their Champions League prowess. They still named a good side with the likes of Saliba, David Raya, Martin Odegaard, Thomas Partey, Declan Rice, Bukayo Saka. I mean, a very, very, very strong side from Arsenal yesterday, but fell to defeat. Eyes elsewhere, of course, but that means second place is not sealed for Arsenal just yet. Man City just 3 points behind them in third, and Newcastle, if they turn this deficit into a win, will only be 2 points behind Arsenal going into next weekend's games. That's what happened yesterday. Already this afternoon, Brentford are leading Man United by 2-1. They were 1-0 down. Man United took the lead through Mason Mount. Luke Shaw then, with an own goal, got the equaliser for Brentford before Kevin Schade has given the Bees the lead. They're stinging Manchester United again there at the G-Tech. Brighton won up against Newcastle, as I said. Yankuba Minta with a goal there. And West Ham won. Tottenham won at the break in East London, as Spurs took the lead through Wilson Odobert, but Jared Bowen, as always for West Ham, has the equaliser for Graham Potter's side. It's 16th against 17th in that London derby, and whoever wins will be the team that is the higher one of the two come the end of the day. West Ham can go above Spurs, and Spurs could end the day in 17th if they fall to defeat against West Ham United. Right, so that's the way those games look. Quickly looking at our game, Brighton against Newcastle, where it is 1-0 to Brighton at the break. Yankuba Minta with the goal, his 6th Premier League goal of the season. And I think overall that first half, I would say, fairly even. Both sides had their chances, both sides had their opportunities. Both sides had good possession spells, but nothing of real great note where you could say, oh, that side's dominated or one side deserves it. I think Brighton with their only big moment, I think, probably of both teams' first half. I think Brighton, lovely little bit of skill from Yankuba Minta, broke space and finding the net. I don't think there's been much of that from Newcastle, finding space in and around the box. A lot of their opportunities have come from the wider areas. As I said, that's where they were exploiting Brighton in those early moments. And I think the home side have actually grown into the game and actually learned to deal with that rather than actually fall away. It's actually Newcastle that I think have actually come off the worst of the two teams in that first half, because I think they started really well, kind of faded as the half went on, and then losing the goal, going 1-0 down, made it a little bit more difficult for them. Despite that, they actually had probably better opportunities towards the end of the half, but again, not able to find that equaliser, and that makes it difficult for the second half. Brighton will be buoyed by that half-time lead against a good side, a good European side in Newcastle, a good European chasing side, shall I say, and yeah, they'll be very happy with that first half, I would say. But Fabian Hirschel will know that he wants a bit more from his side. You know, I don't think Brighton have been up to kind of their top quality. I don't think either side have been anywhere near their top quality today. But one thing I would say is there's a lot of room for improvement. And I think it's whoever improves the better in the second half that will come out with the result. I think if Newcastle come out and are so much better than Brighton in the second half, they'll go on and win it, and they'll turn it around. But I think if Brighton come out in the second half and look to build upon the foundation they've already built with that opening goal, I think they come away with the 3 points if they continue to improve and grow into the game as they did throughout that first half. I think they will find the advantage. But for Eddie Howe and his Newcastle side, who are in great form. Only Liverpool have picked up more points in the last 19 games in the Premier League than Newcastle this season. They've won 5 of their last 6 games in the Premier League, obviously discounting that 4-1 drubbing away at Aston Villa. But they have a good run of form. Newcastle are in a good run of form. And, you know, since their last defeat, since that defeat to Brighton, that's what's really turned it around. They've lost just one of their last 8 games since that defeat against Brighton in the FA Cup, where they were on a pretty poor run at that point, Newcastle. So they've turned it around form-wise, but I think that first half they need to figure out a little bit more and try and find a way back into this game, because the final 3 games of the season are not easy. Home against Chelsea, which will be massive next weekend. Away to Arsenal. Now, Arsenal might not have anything to play for. They might come the penultimate game of the season. And then Everton, their final game of the season. Everton are never an easy team to face. So they do have some tough games coming up, Newcastle. And if they want to solidify top 5, they're going to have to try and find a way to turn this game around and give them that momentum heading into those final few games of the season. But it's Brighton with the advantage at the break in the second half. At the Amex between Brighton and Newcastle is on the way next. back to Premier League Live. Second half at the Amex Stadium between Brighton and Newcastle's on the way in just a moment. Don't forget though, later on this afternoon we watch the champions in action in Liverpool as they head to Chelsea at Stamford Bridge a little later on. Chelsea chasing top 5. Liverpool looking to really end the season on a positive. After their title win, they want to secure a good top points finish at Liverpool and try and get as much out of their final 4 games of the season as they can. Their big job is done, but I'm sure Arne Slot will not, and Liverpool will not rest on their laurels, but they have a tough task in Chelsea at Stamford Bridge to come at 4:30. And then tomorrow night we have a big game as well between Crystal Palace and Nottingham Forest to look forward to. That is tomorrow on LFS as well. But the second half here at the Amex is about to get underway. Don't forget to like, subscribe and turn on post notifications if you haven't done so already. That would be so greatly appreciated, and we thank each and every one of you who's joining us this afternoon for this one on a lovely Sunday afternoon in May here in the Premier League as we get ready for this second half to get underway. The players just returning to the field of play. I will change my feed because we want to be right on time. And we're all but ready to get back underway. But for Newcastle, it's not an easy second half job. Brighton are a good side, a good competitive side, but one thing they are for certain is Newcastle have got the quality to change this one around. And if they show a little bit more quality in the final third, you feel they could probably find a way back into this game, certainly. But as I said, it depends on who improves the most in the second half. It's if Brighton continue improving at the rate they were improving in the first half, growing into the game, settling a little bit more and showing a little bit more quality, they could win it. But I think if Newcastle show up and be the best they've been over the last number of weeks of the season, I think they can certainly turn it around. So it's all still in the all still in the balance here on the south coast. No changes at half-time for either team, by the way, so still all the same in that front as Craig Pawson gets us back underway for the second half. Brighton 1, Newcastle United 0 in the South Coast sunshine here at the Amex Stadium in Brighton, or in Hove, I think it is, this stadium located, which is just outside of the Brighton city centre. It's the Battle of the Birds as well, the Seagulls against the Magpies. Which, there are quite a few of those battles in the Premier League. That's a ball over the top again, the run from Minter. Just finding its way to Nick Pope, but Minter making that threatening run and behind once more. Did it a couple of times in the first half, but here's a break down the left here for Newcastle, and Barnes breaks away from his man, and the cut back, well shielded away by Jack Hinchelwood, but that was positive from Newcastle. Again, Pope getting rid of the ball quickly, bursting it down that left-hand side with Barnes, and then beating past his man and getting the cutback again. The cutback lacking any sort of threat, and Jack Hinchelwood can get it away quite cleanly. But again, they're in the right areas, Newcastle. They just need to find that link-up. They need to find that late runner. Here's Barnes again. Leaves his man on his backside, and the cross from Barnes this time goes well past anybody in the box. Goal kick to Brighton. But a little bit more positive from Newcastle to start the half here. Lovely little run by Barnes. Breaks away from his man, and I think that was Matt O'Reilly really, down that right-hand side. It was at Matt's Pfeiffer. It was one of the two, and again, the cutback just wasn't clean enough. They weren't in the right areas, and Alexander Isak hasn't had a touch. Certainly in the first half, he didn't have a touch inside the Brighton box, which is to my point. They were getting in the right areas wide, but they just weren't finding that threat in the central moments. Even with those cutbacks, they just weren't finding their target. Whether it be their centre forward, whether it be a late runner from midfield, whether it be another winger dropping inside, they just aren't finding those bodies in the box, Newcastle, and that's what's causing them the problem and stopping their attacks at this minute in time and allowing Brighton to recover. Minter, well challenged, but he got the ball off just before the challenge was made, and well back here, laying it back to Jean-Paul Van Hecke. Well, Both of these sides love goals early in the second half. Newcastle with the most in this first 15 minutes of the second half. Brighton second, 14 and 12 respectively at the start of second halves this season. Very intricate stat, but a stat that's important for these two teams, because here comes Simon Adingra. Linking up with Estupiñán. Adingra again. Has to cut it back to Hinshelwood. Baleba. Back out wide to Adingra on this left-hand side. Goes out on the overlap to Estupiñán, who whips across in a bit deep. Away by Livramento at the back post. Retrieved by Baleba to keep the pressure on from Brighton here. Van Hecke. Forward to captain Lewis Dunk. He's broken into the left channel here, but has to return it back to his centre-back partner in Jean-Paul Van Hecke. Newcastle sitting deep off the ball. 5-4-1 for, or kind of a 4-4-2 in a sense. Out of possession. Adingra nicely working with Hinshelwood. Van Hecke. It's a little bit more patient on the ball, Brighton. First half they were very direct. I said it a couple of times. They were trying to, once they got the ball back, they were trying to get it forward very quickly. Being very direct about their approach, but they're being a little bit more intricate, a little bit more possession controlled in this second half so far. And this is a nice turn by Baleba, and he's broken the space. And Carlos Baleba is still going. Finds it out wide to Minta, who drifts it back inside. And Welbeck was there, couldn't get a clean strike on it. And then O'Reilly, in the end, couldn't keep his hands off Fabian Schär. And it's going to be an advantage to Newcastle. But we see this again. Lovely little turn of pace from Carlos Baleba. And he just bursts away. He breaks his way through the Newcastle defence. Gets it wide to Minta, who drifts the ball across beautifully. And Danny Welbeck just can't get a clean strike on the ball. Well marshalled. But that was a nice move by Brighton. And that calm, composed possession, place build-up looked to have worked on that occasion for Brighton. Not forcing the issue. That's O'Reilly with a poor first touch there. Gives the ball away cheaply. Byrne kind of dart it towards his man. And that's good challenge there by Wiefer, but the referee's actually seen an issue here. And it's going to be a foul on Sandro Tonali. He's already been shown a yellow card, Mads Wiefer, sorry. And that's what the Newcastle players are complaining about. We'll see this again. It looked like a decent challenge to me. And he gets the... Again, I don't like this. I really don't like it. I mean, there's barely any contact on Sandro Tonali. And again, he goes down as if he's been shot with a sniper. I mean, relax. The challenge is a decent challenge from Mats Wiefer. He gets the ball, he cleans the ball out, and he doesn't take any of all of the man at all, and he falls to the ground as if he's had his leg chopped off or something. I mean, relax, man. Calm down. Get up. I mean, it's similar to the Livramento one in the first half. I mean, what are you going down like that for? Are you trying to buy a foul of the referee? Are you trying to buy, like, yellow cards and red cards? I mean, I can understand why someone that's kind of a Newcastle persuasion might have that argument, but I mean, you know, as the player that's in that challenge, Sandro Tonali knows that there's no malice, no danger, no action of red or yellow card action there from Mads Wiefer. And at the same time, though, they're going to bring Tariq Lamptey on here, it looks like, Brighton, so I think they are a little bit worried that he might get a second yellow. The bench, just a free kick, by the way. There was no card given out by Craig Pawson, which I agree with. It's just a foul. Tonali, okay, as expected. Ball drifted into the box, bobbling around. It's cleared away by Wiefer, and he's got the ball drifted wide here, and Brighton might have a counter on. There's only two players forward, and Yankuba Minta does really well. He just couldn't find the through ball. The Danny Welbeck, well cut out by Harvey Barnes, I think that was. Now breaking down the left-hand side. Here comes Willock, bursting past his man, but the pace of his own touch takes it away from him, and it goes behind for a Brighton goal kick. But again, Carlos Baleba, the man, might have just put Joe Willock off there. See it again, it's Willock breaking down the left. Baleba's got him closely tracked. It's FIFA that gets beaten past, but Baleba stays with him and just slightly puts him off with his presence. When you're that good of a player, even your presence can scare opponents. And they're going to make a change here, Brighton. So Mats FIFA is off and Tariq Lamptey is coming on. So obviously Brighton and their coaching staff felt that this is just not a worry and an issue they need to take up. A yellow card, and possibly could have got a second yellow Mats FIFA if it was a different referee, really. It's that simple. And Tariq Lamptey just coming on. Just one of those precautionary ones, just to make sure they don't end up with 10 men, Brighton. It's smart from Fabian Herzog there. Really smart coaching. Tariq Lamptey, who really, for a number of years, and a number of years ago, was the main starting right back for Brighton. He was top quality, Tariq Lamptey. Had his problems with injuries over the previous seasons. Hasn't started very much this season in the Premier League for Brighton. Not as much as he probably would have wanted. But he's on here for this second half. A bit of pressure here from Newcastle as Murphy absolutely skied that one well over the bar. Again, the game is still quite even, I'd have to say. Second half, I mean, Brighton have had much more of the possession, but in terms of, there's nothing really shooting-wise. I mean, that was the first shot of the second half from Jacob Murphy there. Brighton just looking a little bit more threatening, in my opinion, at the start of the half, but Newcastle have won it back fairly there off Danny Welbeck. Felt he was fouled, but here's Barnes, a little bit short towards Willock, and Minta has to take evasive action, puts it out for the throw-in. That's going to be a foul on Tino Livramento, who was tracking back towards his own half there. And Yankuba Minta trying to battle for the ball, giving away the cheap foul. Free kick to Newcastle. And before that free kick gets taken, I think they're going to make a change here. It's Anthony Gordon that's getting ready, and is ready to enter the fray here. And it's going to be Jacob Murphy that makes way. So Murphy off and Gordon on here for Newcastle. Maybe trying to be a bit more direct. Our Newcastle with those inverted wingers, Harvey Barnes and Anthony Gordon, able to cut inside. Murphy's more of a stay wide kind of forward in that winger area, not an inverted. Anthony Gordon can definitely chop inside. Free kick delivered into the box. Headed away. Cleared away by Yankuba Minta. But not very far from Brighton defensively there. It goes out for another Newcastle throw on the far left side. Just seems like Newcastle have got a little bit of momentum in the last 2 minutes or so. Brighton's controlled possession lasted for a good couple of minutes, but it's kind of dwindled away at the start of, or in the last couple of minutes. There's a long switch ball out here to Anthony Gordon on this left-hand side. Dribbling towards the box, chops inside, goes down, and it's going to be a penalty. Right on the pitch, his first involvement, and look at that. Anthony Gordon wins Newcastle United a penalty. I mean, if there's ever the definition of an impact substitute, it is that. His first involvement, he chops inside Lamptey, and he's caught a little bit late, and he goes to ground Anthony Gordon, and that's a penalty to Newcastle. It's late. Is it inside the box? We'll have a check on this. Is he inside the box as that challenge is made? Does it carry inside the box? VAR might have a look at this. I think this might be just outside the box here. Now, the initial contact, if it's inside the box, it's a penalty. If it's not, Does the contact carry inside the box? I don't think it does. I think this might get overturned. I think it was outside the box, the contact. Therefore, it should be just a free kick to Newcastle rather than a penalty. Again, already causing threat, Anthony Gordon, down that left side. Initially involved. Beautiful chest, takes it down. It's just drifting inside his head. It's what he's all about. Anthony Gordon cutting inside, tearing kind of fullbacks apart, really, with those cutbacks and chopping back inside. And I mean, that looks pretty simple. It's an outside the box challenge, and the decision is a free kick. So no penalty. Contact outside the box. And that's the decision Andy Madley has come to. And he's relayed that message to Craig Pawson. Tariq Lamptey gets away with it. A little bit luckily there. That contact didn't continue, or wasn't a yard further inside. Otherwise that would have been a certain penalty. But in the end, just a free kick, because it was just outside the box, the contact. And Brighton get off the hook a little bit here. And they still have a free kick to defend, of course. You take that over a penalty all day long, this sort of situation. It's Kieran Trippier and Sandro Tonali that's over it. Both very capable of finding the desired target in the middle. This will be a good moment for Newcastle. The perfect spot and the perfect time to equalise, really, when the momentum was going their way. It's Tonali that's going to take it. Trippier's just drifted away. It's Tonali want to go direct. It's bobbling around. And the shot off balance from Fabian Schär deflects for a corner. Yeah, Tonali trying to blast it towards the near post. It's blocked initially by Lamptey. It bobbles around and it's Schär that off balance hits the shot. And end up putting it behind for the corner off the deflection. As the corner delivered in and cleared away by Estupinian. Gordon picks it up though for Newcastle. Down the left side here. Anthony Gordon chips it forward. Body still in the box. Trying to find Byrne. The header flicked on. But straight to Verbruggen. And I think it would have been a foul anyway. Long ball forward here from Brighton. But again, not finding its target. And Pope slightly pressed by Minter. And Schär. Oh! Gives it away cheaply. This might be a chance. Here's Matt O'Reilly. Tried to play the pass and got his pass deflected behind for the corner. That was a golden opportunity. Fabian Schär under pressure. Tried to force it away. O'Reilly breaks it apart. Nice link up with Danny Welbeck. And O'Reilly, should he went to goal himself, he tried to cut it back across. And it was well blocked by Sandro Tonali for the corner. One end to the other. And Brighton now have the set piece. Their first corner of the game, by the way, this for Brighton. As we surpass the hour mark. Corner on the right hand side. Left footed delivery. Looped into the box. Over the head of Byrne. Or over the head of dunk by Byrne. And here's Minter trying to drift back inside. Run into Bruno Guimaraes, who couldn't find the outball there with Anthony Gordon. A little bit loose. Brighton get the throw in. This game's really on a knife edge. I mean, it's millimetres away in both occasions from a goal being scored, in a sense. I mean, Newcastle were millimetres away from possibly getting a penalty that would have given them a massive opportunity to equalise. And Brighton, mere millimetres away from having a good shot on target from Matt O'Reilly that could have given them a 2-goal lead. So, fine margins at the moment. That's the finest of margins that has Brighton 1-0 to the good at this minute in time. Yankuba Minta's goal in the 28th minute has the difference of the two sides at the moment. Will that continue, or will one of these two find the next goal? Might cause another twist in the tail of this one as Van Hecke intercepting. Good challenge there by Minter. And Welbeck now a little bit short to Adingra. It's a nice idea. It's just not a great execution from the experienced man, who wins the ball back off a challenge. And a collision, and here's Lamptey bursting towards the box. Again, the cut back across was cleared away. And now Newcastle want a break. Down the left-hand side it comes. Isak's drifted wide. Alexander Isak chops back inside. Isak now lays it off to Harvey Barnes on the right. Barnes chops onto his left foot. Gets past another one. And the shot right at Bart Verbruggen comes to a dismal end. It's similar to Yankuba Minta's goal, actually, the moment from Harvey Barnes. He just doesn't connect with it well enough. Kind of hoofs it a little bit rather than gets a whip around the ball. Just kind of pokes it towards Bart Verbruggen. Not the nice finish that he probably would have needed there. The game ebbing and flowing as Lamptey's hopeful ball forward was put out of play by Dan Burn for a Brighton throw, but it gets them up the field. No change in the two other games at the moment. Still 2-1 Brentford and 1-1 between West Ham and Tottenham. And those other fixtures. Well, it's been Newcastle with the better opportunities in the second half so far. Once again, not able to find that equalising goal to get themselves back within a chance. Brighton a little bit sloppy in possession again. Estepinian has to slide in to put it out for the throw. Trippier gets that throw in. Guimaraes brought down again by Adingra. Another cheap foul to give away from Brighton's point of view. Just keeps Newcastle up the field at the moment. Game is a little bit more end-to-end, but what you can say is, with their quality, Newcastle are looking the more likely to get the next goal. But again, I wouldn't bet my house on that. Not a chance. Would I do that? Not a chance. Because Brighton have that shock factor in this one. 25 minutes to go. A reminder for you that we've got more football coming up across the weekends here in LFS. Another game a little later at Stamford Bridge. Chelsea taking on the champions Liverpool at 4:30. As this Newcastle free kick delivered in. And again, too deep. Although Byrne does keep it alive against O'Reilly at the back post here. Byrne tries to deliver in. Cleared away by Lamptey. And bobbling ball gets away from Welbeck again. It's not been great centre forward wise, Danny Welbeck today. Hasn't held it up really well. That's a nice turn of pace there from Scher, finding Barnes down the right side, and the cross was threatening. But it got away from his teammates there a little bit too high. As Barnes gets it back again. A little bit more central. Finding it out wide to Guimaraes. She's got Tonali on the wing. Here is Sandro Tonali. Trying the cross. Blocked well by Estupinian. Will be a throw into Newcastle, which they take quickly. Don't want to lose momentum. Tonali. Inside to Guimaraes. Hounded by Danny Welbeck there. It's brought down by Danny Welbeck, but the advantage goes the way of Newcastle. They come under deep pressure here at the moment. And Yankuba Minta trying to commit a challenge on Anthony Gordon. Brings down the Englishman. And a free kick goes the way of Newcastle. A bit sloppy there in the midfield. Van Hecke committed. Willock wins the ball. Here's Gordon. Again, a very crowded box from Brighton, but there's lots of Newcastle bodies there. Here's Barnes trying to find the advantage. Cleared away by O'Reilly. Again, it's starting to be a bit one-way traffic here. Newcastle attacking, Brighton defending. Here's Barnes. Cuts it back, finds his target, the back heel. Doesn't get a clean connection from Alexander Isak. And it's finding Bart Verbruggen again. This time at least, the cutback from the edge of the box. Or sorry, from the byline from Harvey Barnes. Just cuts it away. And finding Alexander Isak. He's facing away from goal and tries the back heel, but just bobbles its way towards Bart Verbruggen again. At least he found his target that time, Harvey Barnes, from the wider area. That header from Dan Burn. Couldn't keep the possession for Newcastle. I think Brighton need to find a little bit more threat in the final third here. Either they make a change forward line or change their approach. It looks like they're going to change some personnel at the moment, Fabian Hürzeler. So Jack Hinshelwood is going to be replaced here. He's going to be replaced by Yasin Ayari. And the second substitution is going to see Seaman Adingra. He's going to be replaced by Joel Veltman. So Adingra and Hinshelwood off, and Ayari and Veltman on for Brighton. So let's see what this change in approach can do to change the game a little bit for Brighton. As the players arriving at Stamford Bridge for that big one at 4:30. A reminder for you, that game is in about an hour's time at Chelsea taking on Liverpool, and we'll have that one live here in about an hour's time as the champions, since their first game since being crowned champions, Liverpool, and they head to Stamford Bridge. A fairly tough away game for Liverpool this afternoon, but we'll see what comes of that one a little later on. Liam says that this goalie is cracked. Well, I wouldn't say Bart Verbruggen's been on top form today. I don't think he's had to be. I think he's just had to do a competent job. Newcastle really haven't tested him enough, and you know, from their many extra shots over Brighton, but they've had 3 shots on target all afternoon, Newcastle, and I can't remember one where I go, oh, Bart Verbruggen's made an unbelievable save there, or he stopped them really from getting a goal there. Just Newcastle haven't had that kind of detrimental cutting edge in that way. They might find it here. Here's Bruno Guimaraes, bricks into space. It's a loose ball. Willock brought down, is he, by Van Hecke? The referee takes a think and does point to the spot. And I'm sure this one, it's certainly in the net, or it's certainly in the box. But is it going to be checked? We'll see it again. It's a lovely ball by Guimaraes, finding Isak. Well, Isak left it. It was probably the target, and Van Hecke. Oh, I don't think this is a penalty. I don't think this is a penalty. See it again. Van Hecke pulls out of it. I don't think he makes contact. I think that's a dive from Joe Willock. I'm genuinely serious here. I don't think there's any contact there. I think Andy Madley should recommend an on-field review here. I don't think this is a penalty. I just don't see this as a penalty. Initially it looked like it was a foul by Van Hecke, but we see it again. Van Hecke slides in, but he pulls his right leg away, so he's not made any contact with Joe Willock, and Willock goes over basically because he sees Van Hecke sliding in. I think this is not a penalty, and I think this should be checked and overturned, and I think it will be, because Craig Pawson has been told to go to the monitor by Andy Madley. So Craig Pawson will have a second look, and I think this will be overturned. So he pointed to the spot the first time. Andy Madley said, no, outside the box, overturn it. Pointed to the spot a second time, Craig Pawson, and he's now been called to the monitor to have a look again. He's not being shown the angle just yet. See it again. I just don't think there's any contact there. Van Hecke does really well. You can see that Van Hecke knows that the spot's at the last second. He's not getting the ball at all. And he drags his right foot away just at the very last second. It's if a split second later, Van Hecke there, and it's definitely a penalty. But he gets it at just the right time where I think he saved himself. And I think it's going to be a yellow card for Joe Willock for a dive. I suspected that as well. It looked like he made an absolute meal of that, Joe Willock. Because Willock certainly was not challenged by Van Hecke whatsoever. And I gotta say, Newcastle have been on some crack today, because there's a couple of these where they've tried to buy the foul, buy the yellow card, buy the moment, and the referee hasn't fallen for it all afternoon. And on that occasion he had a second look and rightfully overturned the decision. So no penalty, a yellow card for Joe Willock for simulation. And I think that, again, from Craig Pawson, the referee, is the correct call. And I gotta say, credit to the referee, credit to VAR, because today Newcastle could have had 2 penalties where both weren't correct. And I think VAR has pulled up trees there in getting the right decisions. I mean, they're simple decisions to get, but they got the right decisions, and that's all that matters. But certainly not a penalty is the decision, as we have a stoppage here at the moment. A little bit of a break. So we can tell you there's been another goal at the G-Tech Community Stadium. Man United were 1-0 up, and I think there's been another goal, just as I say. Man United were 1-0 up through Mason Mount. Luke Shaw equalised for Brentford, scoring an own goal. Then Kevin Shada gave Brentford the lead. Kevin Shada's then got a second, which makes it 3-1 to Brentford. But I don't think that's where the scoring's going to end, because I believe it's just gone 4-1. Brentford are absolutely battering Manchester United at the G-Tech again. It is now 4-1 to Brentford. Just as I was about to tell you that it was 3-1, I saw the screen change in front of me, and it's now 4-1 to Brentford. So the Bees really sharing their sting with Man United today. And Johan Vissa, by the way, has got that 4th goal for Brentford. So it is Brentford 4, Man United 1. Newcastle have made another change here. Joe Willock, who thought he'd won a penalty, but was given a yellow card for simulation in retrospect, has been taken off. And coming on in his place is Callum Wilson. So an extra attacker there for Newcastle in the final third. And Eddie Howe just having a little bit of a giggle with the 4th official, Steve Martin, on the sideline there. Probably over that decision. I mean, both VAR decisions today, I have to give credit to VAR and all of that, because they've done very well today, being honest with you. And at the moment, there's 2 VAR calls denying Newcastle penalties that obviously they shouldn't have had. And shouldn't have been given, but that's all that matters. And Brighton at the moment are thankful that the VAR did get the right decision on both of those occasions. And with 15 minutes to go, and they still lead by a 1-0. Yankuba Minta, that goal on the 28th minute. It's the difference between the two sides, and it could be the difference for Newcastle in terms of the Champions League qualification places. Let's show you what the table currently looks like as it stands at the moment. So this is the way it would look, and we can tell you what it would do for Brighton as well. So this is the top half of the table at the moment. There we are. So Newcastle would stay in 4th, but they would be on 62 points. Of course, they fell down to 4th from 3rd after Man City's win on Friday night. So Newcastle down to 4th. They could, if they lose today and both Chelsea and Nottingham Forest win, Newcastle could be 6th come the weekend's finish. If they lose, but a draw or a win would keep them inside the top 5, no matter what happens elsewhere this weekend. A win would take them up to 3rd, above City again, where they started the weekend, but they would only be 2 points off Arsenal in 2nd as well. So it's a big kind of swing for Brighton. Sorry, they're up to 8th, as you can see there on the table with a win as it stands. They will be in 54 points. A point ahead of Bournemouth and 2 points ahead of Brentford, who are currently winning at this moment in time. Right, that's the way that stands at the moment, the Premier League table. Don't kick from Van Hecke there. That one really didn't turn out well for Brighton there. Comes out for a goal kick to Newcastle. That was a bit of a lucky bounce there in the midfield there from Brighton. Nicely taken down by Minta. A nice reverse ball from O'Reilly to try and send Minta on a chase here down the left side. But Trippier was there just in the nick of time. And Yankuba Minta, despite playing 77 minutes here, is absolute blistering pace. Blistering down that left side there, and the experienced Kieran Trippier just about cutting that one out for the throw-in. As Verbruggen gets it back and tries to dart it out to that left side again. Here is Yankuba Minta, rolls it in behind. A second goal now for Brighton would surely wrap it up. Here's Minta, going for the early cross, brought down by O'Reilly in the box. Can he spin away? He gets it back across, but no one in blue and white to take it. And Byrne clears it away, but that's better from Brighton. Barely had any sort of threat in the second half. Haven't had a shot so far in the second 45 of Brighton. Riding their luck a little bit in this second 45, but now with these 11 and a half minutes to go, have the chance to try and confirm. And they've got a free kick there. Baleba was brought down. Dunk to take this free kick. Chips it forward again towards Minta. Well, won by Trippier, but nipped away in the midfield, and Minta's got in behind. Here's Yankuba Minta! Blocked by Pope. Follow up there is bobbling around. A challenge! Craig Pawson says no. Just a goal kick. O'Reilly was brought down. The referee had a think, but wags the finger and says no. Goal kick. See it again. Minta gets in behind. Goes across goal. Blocked by Nick Pope. Bounces down. Lamptey flicks it on. But it was Stupinian. And then it's a collision between Tonali and O'Reilly. Is that a foul? See it again. Get a little bit of a better angle at it. Does Tonali get the ball? It wasn't a great angle. Let's see this one. Ooh. I think he comes through the back of Matt O'Reilly there. Is it a clear and obvious error? I don't think it is. And VAR certainly didn't either. So just a goal kick to Newcastle was given there. But they're certainly on the ropes a little bit here, Newcastle. Coming very close. They might want to try and nick one on the break here. Harvey Barnes. A little bit of space for Isak. Finding Gordon. Edge of the box. Anthony Gordon eyeing up a shot. But eyes it and skies it from Anthony Gordon. Goal kick. Again, they've just been wasteful in front of goal today, Newcastle. That's as simple as that. They've just been really, really wasteful, and they've struggled to find the attackers on a consistent basis. I mean, the front three of Newcastle, before and after the substitutions, just really haven't got into the game as much as they probably should have, and had as much of a goal threat as they probably should have, and usually do have for Newcastle. You know, take out of account that Aston Villa game, where they only scored one, they've scored more than 2 goals on their last 5 Premier League games. They've scored more than 3 or more goals on their 4 of their last 5 games in the Premier League. 3, 4, 5, 3 in their last 4 wins in the Premier League. So they do know how to find the net, Newcastle, and certainly on a consistent basis. But today their attack just hasn't been connected, and that's lovely hold-up play from Ayari there, and he still gets the ball, but they bobble, and the bounce lets Brighton down there. It bounces out for a Newcastle throw on the near side, but they're showing a lot more energy in the final third, Brighton, in these last 5-10 minutes. Certainly causing Newcastle more harm. It's Tonali. Back to Scher. Fabian Scher hooks it a little bit further. Nicely cut out well by Lewis Dunk there, sorry. Away from Isak, but Newcastle pick up the pieces. Here is Isak. Down the left-hand side it comes to Gordon. Bodies flooding into the box. Anthony Gordon can't find any of them. That cross was a little bit weak. Lamptey with an awkward header. Baleba with a clearance. And Yari flicks it on, but no one beyond him. Scher now. Out wide to the left-hand side. Livramento. Trying to roll it on to Anthony Gordon, but my goodness, that was wasteful. And that really goes a begging. Another goal, an absolute thriller at the G-Tech today. I wish we had got that game. There was a point in the weekend where I thought, oh, we're doing that game Brentford Man United. We're not, we aren't, but we probably should be, because it's a 6-goal thriller. Brentford 4-1 up, Man United have got one back. Alejandro Garnacho has got one back, so it's now Brentford 4, Manchester United 2, heading into the final 7 minutes of that game. A real goal fest there at the G-Tech today, as it has been on many occasions this season at the G-Tech Community Stadium. Lots of goals in those games involving Brentford. They're the real entertainers this season, especially in West London. 7 minutes to go here. It's much narrower, much tighter of this affair. Newcastle have been wasteful in front of goal all afternoon, but all it takes is one chance and they can steal an equalizer. Here's Livramento. Isak. Gordon. Isak again, wide on the left-hand side. Trying to carve their way through. Tonali. Nice share. Reverses it nicely into Harvey Barnes. Brought down in the edge of the box, and that's going to be a free kick. Jean-Paul Van Hecke with a foul there. A little bit late on Barnes. It will be a free kick in and around the D here. Lovely little reverse ball there from Scher. It was a Yari that slid in, missed the ball, and then Barnes on the turn. Caught a little bit late by Van Hecke. Went sliding in, and it's a very good opportunity here for Newcastle. In the D, fairly central. It's all about getting it up and down from this sort of area. Let's see what they can offer from a set piece late in the game when they need it most, Newcastle. Trippier and looks like Scher was over it there as well. A very height-focused wall there from Brighton. O'Reilly, Welbeck, Van Hecke, Dunk and Baleba in a 5-man wall for Brighton. And Tariq Lamptey is the so-called draft excluder at the back there, under the feet of all his teammates. It will be Scher that will take it, and it bobbles its way through the ball. Oh, what a save from Verbruggen. It's going to be a free kick anyway against Newcastle. They're calling for handball. Is he given a penalty? Let's see. I think he has. Fabian Scher. Does it come off Yasin Ayari? It looks like it has. Oh. It looks like it comes off the hand. He's given the penalty, has Craig Paulson. That's the 3rd time he's pointed to the spot today. The previous 2 were incorrect. But is it 3rd time lucky? 3rd time's the charm for Newcastle United. VAR will, of course, intervene again to ensure it is the correct decision. But to me, it looks like Yasin Ayari moves his arm towards the ball. And I think it's going to be a handball and a penalty here. I mean, we can't really see much from that sort of angle. Trying to get a closer look at it. It looks like it does come off the arm of Ayari. Kind of drags his arm back inside. I don't know whether he's trying to get it into a natural position again, but he kind of flaps his left arm down at the ball. It's pretty definitive to me. Andy Madley in the VAR booth, I think maybe having the same feeling, along with Scott Ledger, the assistant VAR. And they are both having a conversation about that at the moment. To me, that looks like handball and a penalty. Maybe it is 3rd time lucky for Newcastle to try and get something out of this game. Craig Paulson, the 3rd time he's pointed to the spot today. The previous 2 overturned. They're checking for a possible offside as well now, which makes me think they're going to give the penalty. And the decision is confirmed. Penalty it is then. And now Newcastle have their chance to steal a point. Third time lucky, it seems. The previous two, they were feeling they were getting this chance to get a goal from the spot. Both overturned by VAR. And now Alexander Isak will get the chance to hit the ball from the 12-yard spot. And he scored 13 of his 14 for Newcastle in terms of the penalties. A very, very good record. Almost perfect. But Bart Verbruggen needs to be the hero for Brighton. They've had to ride their luck in the second half. Newcastle have been wasteful in front of goal. But one of the clinical finishers in the league has a chance to get them a late equaliser. Alexander Isak steps up and slots it into the bottom left corner. Lovely penalty. Cool, calm, composed from Alexander Isak. And Bart Verbruggen doesn't want to hand the ball back. And it's caused a little bit of a ruckus here in the latter stages. There's just no need for that. But his 23rd goal of the season for Alexander Isak in the Premier League. And he has Newcastle a late equaliser. And maybe just yet, there is another twist in this tale. Because we still have time for one of these two to get a late winner. Brighton 1, Newcastle United 1. And it's their star man, Alexander Isak, from the penalty spot, that at the moment is rescuing a point for Newcastle United. 1-1. Incredible from Isak. Just an unbelievable finisher. Brighton needed a late winner last time out at home to see off West Ham. They were 2-1 down in that game to the late stages. They might go 2-1 down here with Barnes. He's in the box. He's got it across. Blocked by Dunk. And now they need to hang on a little bit, Brighton. That's lovely. Held up play there from Minta. And the ball sent into the channel. But Pope should deal with that and does. The ball cleaned out for a throw. 9 added minutes at the end of this game then. 9 minutes for another twist. Minta steps inside, trying to link it up with Welbeck. Couldn't find him. Ayari though. Plays it up to Dunk. Van Hecke. Dunk again. Finding O'Reilly with a little bit of a heavy touch, but challenges and battling in the box. In and around the box, and Newcastle come away with the ball here. Isak, now Gordon down the left-hand side. Newcastle on the breakaway. Feel the momentum, feel the advantage of getting that equaliser, and want to turn it into a win that could be monumental for their end-of-season objective. Trying to find a top 5 finish. Third would be where they would end up with a win today. A draw would keep them in 4th. A win would be ever so sweet after trailing for such a long time. They're not in a mad hurry. There's still 7.5 minutes, so there's more than enough time for a winner to be found. As that's going to be a free kick given away by Joel Veltman on Anthony Gordon. And this might be a chance again for Newcastle. Again, it's a one-on-one battle down the line. Again, it's where Newcastle have looked threatening all day in the wide areas. They find the battle, and Joel Veltman beaten for pace there by Anthony Gordon, and Gordon wasn't going any further past Veltman. Free kick to Newcastle. As Brighton want to make a double change here. I'm not going to do it before the free kick gets taken, and Isak's ball in. Cleared away by Dunk. Not very far though. Estupinian still under pressure at his own byline, and hooks it away. Only as far as Scher though, who whips it back in, and the chest right back into the hands of Verbruggen from Joel Veltman. Experience showing itself there for Brighton defensively. Mad scramble to the finish line here it will be. Newcastle win the ball back again. They've given it away cheaply, though, to O'Reilly. Lovely little ball from Ayari, finding O'Reilly, who was blocked off by Trippier. Will be a throw into Brighton. It's anybody's game now. As, they won't get allowed to take the quick throw there, were Brighton. I'm afraid he's going to give a yellow card out here. I'm trying to figure out who the yellow card was given to. It's Danny Welbeck that was given the yellow card for dissent. As Brighton make that double change then. So Matt O'Reilly is off. He's been replaced by Garuda. And Yankuba Minta is also off. And he's been replaced by Diego Gomez. So Gomez and Garuda on. And O'Reilly and Minta off for Brighton. Verbruggen. Long kick forward. Trying to be held up there down the left-hand side. A little bit of a slip for Mr. Pignan. I think Harvey Barnes is actually going to be penalised here for late contact with Estepinian. And it's going to be a free kick to Brighton. So as it stands, Newcastle will be on 63 points. 1 point behind third place Man City. 3 ahead of Chelsea. 3 ahead of Nottingham Forest. And 3 ahead of Villa. But better goal difference than all of those 3 teams below them. But 2 of those 3 teams still have to play. So there is a theory and a world where Newcastle could still find themselves outside the top 5. That's unlikely, but they could find themselves outside the top 5 come the weekend's end if results don't go their way. That is if they hold on for a draw as well. Gruda delivers it in. The header is off target from Diego Gomez. What a chance. Great ball in from Brian Gruda. And the 2 substitutes trying to link up, and they almost did to perfection. Beautiful ball in by Gruda. And the time and space and opportunity was there. Free header from Diego Gomez, and he just heads it clean wide. What a chance. What a chance. We have another goal to tell you about at the G-Tech. It looked like Brentford were cruising to victory against Man United. Well, not anymore, because it's 4-3 in that one. Man United have got a late goal from Ahmad, who's back in the side. Here come Newcastle trying to get a late goal with Wilson. Verbruggen over the bar. What a rocket from Callum Wilson. What a save from Bart Verbruggen. Again, little bit of space. Picked up well by Barnes. Laid it off to Wilson, who just absolutely thrashed it with the left foot. Or the right foot, sorry, with his first attempt. My goodness, Verbruggen had to make a good save there. And now it will be a corner to Newcastle. 3 minutes or so to go. Guimarães' corner, headed away by Lamptey. And it's going to be a free kick to Brighton there anyway, as there was a foul in the box spotted by the referee. See this save, it's absolutely wonderful from Verbruggen. Great shot from Wilson, but a fabulous save by Bart Verbruggen. And Newcastle making more changes here. It's Sven Botman and Emil Kraft that are coming on, and they're replacing Kieran Trippier and Fabian Schär. So Botman and Kraft on, Schär and Trippier off, just to solidify the defence for Newcastle in these late stages. 2.5 minutes of the 9 added to go. Nice header won by Gomez. Up in the air it's still from Brighton. Ayari lifts it forward again. Welbeck takes it down. Nice little skip away from Gruda. Here's Gomez. A little bit loose. Does find its way to Baleba. It gets it back to Van Hecke, who switches out to the left side. And the header was won. Estepinian thought he was fouled. The crowd certainly did, but the referee didn't. And just a goal kick will come Newcastle's way here. No foul. To the disagreement of the Brighton head coach, Fabian Hürzeler. 90 seconds to go. Long kick by Pope. 1-1. Van Hecke with a long header forward. Again, trying to get involved was Van Hecke, but lost out there and getting a bit muddled as Brighton try and keep the ball, but they just can't at the moment. That long ball forward over the top from Tonali, finding Harvey Barnes, but he was offside. Last minute then. Is there one last chance for either of these two? Try and get a late winner. Verbruggen trying to steal a few extra yards. Referee making sure that's not the case. Let's see. Verbruggen, long kick. Forward again. Command and header by Byrne. Send it back the way it was delivered by Verbruggen, and Van Hecke gets it back to his goalkeeper simply. It's another one. Last ditch kick forward from Brighton. Try and win this game. Again, Byrne thumps it away. Tonali with an awkward header and allows Lamptey to flick it over the head of his man. Was brought down. No foul to the referee as the game was a bit loose here. Botman's half clearance. Ayari. Is there one last chance for Brighton? Cannot squeeze it through in the box. And Gordon can't get forward for Newcastle. Still time remains. Is there one last shot in this? Lamptey wide. It's now or never. Lamptey blocked by Livramento. Lamptey still has it. Reverses it. Forward. A little bit of a loose touch. Oh, it's fallen there. Foul is given away though. It was just falling for Yasin Ayari, but the foul was already given. And that should be that really. Brighton certainly tried it, but it didn't in the end come off for them. And that might just be that when this kick gets taken by Nick Pope. A reminder for you, Chelsea-Liverpool is coming up at 4:30. Do join us for that in about a half an hour's time. As Pope's kick long ends the game. It's a point apiece. And really on the day where Newcastle could have had 3 penalties, it was 1 penalty that ensured they got a point, which they probably at least deserved. They were wasteful in front of goal. Brighton barely had any chances in the second half. They were hanging on, but in the end they couldn't hang on for the 3 points, but they certainly held on for a solitary point. It is finished here at the Amex Stadium. It's Brighton 1, Newcastle United 1. And a roundup of the other scores then. It is finished Brentford 4, Manchester United 3. It is a close finish in the end there. Brighton 1, Newcastle 1, and the same score between West Ham and Tottenham. Right, Chelsea against Liverpool, the champions for their first trip since being crowned at the Premier League winners last Sunday. Head to Stamford Bridge. Join us for that one in about 30 minutes' time. Thanks for your company. We'll see you then very shortly.